Thank you for putting this afternoon together. Thank all of you for coming today, and I hope that you find this entertaining as well as educational. The purpose of having a roundtable discussion like this is not just to tell you about the life of Puccini, the history of the opera, but it's kind of let you know what goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot that happens on the way to get ready for this performance, and to give you a bit of kind of the behind the curtain feeling about what's happening. We're going to see what we have here today. Now we have one person who's still on his way, and that's Dennis Jesse, who is singing Ping. Who we have here today is, most of you should know, Carol Rausch, who was chorus master on this production. Carol, thank you. Then we have the bass, Ken Weber, who is the Mandarin, will be the first person you see on the opening night. And then we have Marc Molnar, who is our director of production, who will be here to talk about specifics about this production that are different than what you normally will see. As I mentioned, Ken is the first person that you see in this production. He comes out. So Ken, welcome, and why don't you tell us just a little bit about who you are and a little bit about the role that you're doing for us.
Sure. My name is Ken Weber, and how many seasons have I been here? Maybe 10 or 11 or something. Stand, sure.
I'll be drinking.
So, my name is Ken Weber, and I was saying I've been here maybe 10 or 11 seasons, I think, now, and graduate sort of Loyola University vocal program, and originally from Los Angeles, graduate of New England Conservatory, and I've been in New Orleans. I did a stint here for about 3 years, 98 to 2001, and then I returned here about 3 years ago to take over as Associate Chaplain for Liturgy and Music at Loyola. So I work full-time now at Loyola in University Ministry, directing church music, basically. And then the role, I guess, of the Mandarin, as Todd said, I'm the first one on stage, and I sort of lay down the law. I say, the princess has decreed that this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen throughout the opera. There are 3 riddles that she has proposed, and whoever is brave enough to try to solve them will win her hand in marriage, but if he fails, off with his head. So it's an important bit of music that takes maybe 2 minutes, and then I come back and say the same thing again later, and that's about it. That's all you see of me.
Well, I want to ask here now, you talked about the job that you have at Loyola. Which came first? I mean, were you the chaplain or the singer, or how did this actually happen?
Well, interesting story. My primary training is as a singer. I went to undergrad and graduate school for voice, but I've always sort of had an interest in church music and church in general, raised Catholic, and I found myself singing full-time for about 3 years, not having to have any other job. And then at the end of that 3rd year, I remember the very moment I was standing in rehearsals for Traviata, and I was singing The Baron, and I remember, don't tell Robert this, but I remember standing there thinking, I'm a little bit bored. And I thought there are so many thousands of singers out there who would love to be in this position. And so I thought, if this is such a fun career and so enriching to so many people, so if I'm not really enjoying it full time, then maybe it's time to look for something else. And the position at Loyola opened up, and I sort of returned to it as a career. I had been doing similar work at Spring Hill College in Mobile as one of my sort of transitional jobs before the full-time singing kicked in. But I love singing as an avocation, as a hobby. New Orleans Opera, our relationship is well-grounded now, and Robert's been very faithful and loyal to having me back every season. So I would say the singing is fun, the chaplain work is the career at this point.
That's very interesting. Now, so it's really a nice thing here in New Orleans is that Robert, as you said, is very loyal to using local singers when at all possible. Does that feel? How do you feel about that? How does that work with you and your colleagues else in the community?
Well, I mean, it's a win-win for us, especially for my position at Loyola, because we have such a strong music school. It works really well for the students to see me in a professional artistic setting, because then, especially the vocal students, when they see me performing, I then go back to them and say, hey, do you want to help me out by singing at Mass or singing at a service now and then? And they take my request as coming from what they call, sort of a legitimate artist who's proven himself and is respectable. And so it's easy to form a repartee with them. I'm not, just the church musician who is trying to do, a nice little thing on Sunday. We're going to really do some real music, and so it gives me some street cred with them, if you will, as an artist.
Well, I mean, as a performer, I mean, the schools he's listing, going to New England Conservatory, I mean, you're very, very much a real, legitimate performer. And I think we're very lucky to have somebody with his kind of credentials and background, not only in our community, but in our community, to be able to be singing on our stage fairly regularly. What was the last time you performed on stage here?
May.
Exactly.
I was, NOOA,
yes,
in Pearl Fishers.
Okay, exactly. So that's a wonderful situation. And you would think that would be a real, would be a given. But there are a lot of communities, I'll tell you, that sometimes will specifically not use people from their local community because, the whole a prophet in its own land kind of thing.
Right.
And that, if you're local, you can't be legitimate. And I think we're very lucky here that Robert takes quite advantage of the people, and it's great for you, it's great for us, definitely. Well,
right.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I've definitely heard, the local artists that Robert does use, absolutely on par. I mean, I have sung plenty of other places, and they, they've got nothing on the artists that Robert uses from top to bottom, from the leads to the smallest role. I mean, it's really A-house quality.
Absolutely. Well, I want to move on just a little bit now to another character. Did I mention already that Ping will be coming? We just have to add something about that, so he'll be here. I want to move on to who I think is one of the most important characters in this opera, and that is the chorus. Yes. Carol, I want you to talk to us a bit. I want you to just kind of tell us what the chorus does. I mean, and tell us who they are as a character, and then I'd like to talk to about what kind of work it is for you to get this mass of people all on the same page musically, all on the same page textually, because it's not exactly easiest of Italian, and on the same page dramatically, because they are so extremist in their emotions, and that has to be reflected in the music. So why don't you just kind of take it over and talk about that?
Can you hear me if I stay seated? Is that okay?
Sure.
You okay? This is obviously a piece that we use that. This is obviously a piece an opera that we look forward to doing when the opportunity comes back. The last time was 10 years ago. When I'm deciding who's on the roster, I always try to have some of my regulars who've done the piece before, who can provide leadership and kind of know how it goes. Some people have done it multiple times. And then I actually love having Loyola students as well, and younger people to expose them to the opera for the first time, and just for freshness of sound and so forth. So we are budgeted at 60, and we have 59 in the chorus, so it's one of the bigger ones of the year. And you also choose, proportionately, I've got 16 basses, which is the largest group, because there are places where they divide into, some of them are just the crowd, and then about 8 of them are executioners, and so forth. So it's split, and they have actually different, they're singing different text and so forth. So I need more of them than almost anything else. Some of them are the wise men in the riddle scene as well. And then I have a good load of tenors, about 14, and then the women are split evenly. So it is fantastic, as Todd said, because of the range of emotions, the sheer beauty and also power of the music. We're very aware as a chorus that we're on from, we respond to the Mandarin. We start with little kind of guttural when he's talking about the execution. It's kind of a bloodthirsty crowd, I have to say. And the whole opening, sharpen the grindstone and get the axe going. And the opening scene is just one of the fantastic ones in all of the literature. And then it segues into actually my personal favorite spot in the score, which is the moon chorus. The executions take place at moonrise, and so we're singing in this beautiful and a little bit creepy way about the execution, and we had just sung in a very powerful, fast-driven way, and then it becomes this fantastic, beautiful, just warm and lush section about that. We're singing throughout in Act 2 and 3, but I would say Act 1 is kind of our big scene, and it takes several sessions. This is Dennis Jesse, who is Ping, and we're very glad to have him here. He's driven down from Baton Rouge, and he's on faculty at LSU. It takes several sessions just to read the music down, just to get through the sheer volume of it. And then you go back and work on, in some cases, getting the notes, which are hard. This lies very high, especially for the women's voices. It's just very high tessitura and is taxing in that way. There's a lot of fast Italian, which we drill and drill and drill so that we're all on the same page that way. And then you finally hit a point where you feel like you've gotten enough nuts and bolts and you can do what I think is the real mission of an opera chorus, which is it's the mission of principals too, but for a chorus to sing as a character. What are we here? We're driven here. Here we're sorrowful. Here we're this and that, and work on getting colors and bringing that into it too. One thing I wanted to say also, I think most of you know, this has a children's chorus. And they are a delight and are having fun with this. I auditioned them about 3 weeks ago. It was on Friday night, September 16th. And they, some of them were, I think, a little panicky about singing in Italian. But I find that children actually, they plunge right in and they get it pretty quickly. Much of they sing 4 times. And when they come in, they are often a beautiful and very innocent counter to the adult chorus who's been, out for blood. They have very beautiful text. They sing the same melody every time they come. It's just set in different keys, either higher or lower. And so they're like a little bit of leitmotif of innocence and a yearning for... and this happens, of course, at the end of the opera, for Turandot to soften and to come down to them, and for the ice to melt, metaphor for this kind of horrific rain to become more gentle and more humane. So those are some of the things we're looking for. Did I answer the things you were looking for?
Very, very well. I want to talk to you about the chorus and how they are, for you speaking for them now. How they're feeling about looking forward to the principals in this cast. I know that they've sung with Lise before. They've sung with the Calaf before, with Roy. Are they already excited about this?
So they're always excited about, what we look forward to is joining, being part of the whole production. And we will experience that on this coming Thursday night. Our final music rehearsal is tomorrow night. Robert will then work with them on Tuesday night musically and do a little bit of staging for us. The scenes that are staged for us are the wise men in the riddle scene. The children's first beautiful little scene, and they'll have little white smocks on and be carrying little lanterns, so they'll feel like a breath of fresh air. That will be staged Tuesday night. And there are 2 handmaidens who are kind of protecting Turandot. That little scene will be staged. And then Robert will work on the staging with the principals on Wednesday and Thursday afternoons. We'll try to put the whole thing together at the convention center on Thursday night. There are a lot of fantastic lighting cues in this, which Marc can tell you more about in a little bit. So every effort has been made to have this have as much production value as possible. It is semi-staged, but I don't think you will feel like it's static, but rather a very powerful emotional statement.
I think that's a very good point, Carol. That I think that some people, hearing of it being a semi-staged thing, are thinking that that it's a gala, that people will be standing in tuxes in a straight line in the front. That's not the case at all, from what you're saying. The chorus will have staging, definitely all the principals will be staged, and the ping, pang, and pong I can't imagine. But so that there is definitely a staging going on, there's costuming involved, and the lighting, and so it's basically just putting it into a different place than normal.
Yes, and to add to what you said earlier, there are definitely some favorite artists in this cast that they're looking forward to. Lise was here for Flying Dutchman, and so we adore her, may I say. As an artist and as a person, we just hold her in high regard. We can't wait to work with her again. Roy was here also in Dutchman, but had been here earlier for Manon Lescaut, so we know him very well. And I should, of course, mention Tony Laciura, who's a native of New Orleans, a Loyola grad, and for many years was the premier character tenor at the Met, and now has gone on to a fantastic career in TV on HBO's Boardwalk Empire. And he's just so much fun to have here. It's great. We know Dennis, and we know Ken, and we know Chauncey, and we know Casey, many of the people who are coming here. And then we'll get to know some new artists like Katie Van Kooten, who's the Lyall, and Peter Volpe, who's the Timur. So connecting with those principles is what we can't wait to do, and it will all happen later this week.
I have to say that for the choristers that I know, I think the most amazing moment musically for the entire show is the funeral march for Lyall. That music is only the chorus. They carry it completely, and it is possibly some of the saddest music I think ever written.
It's fantastically beautiful, and it's beautifully scored. The final part, I think most of you know, Puccini died before he finished the entire opera, and the Lyall death scene is the last thing, and the chorus has the last word, and we are chanting very quietly, and up above is a piccolo, and down below are bass instruments, and it's just exquisite, and it's trying to get as beautiful a color there as you can on something like that. So yeah, it's as we say every night we're rehearsing, this is as good as it gets.
Absolutely true. Well, thank you, Carol. Let's turn down here. Thank you to our ping. So you stand up, Dennis, and take the mic. Now, as Carol said, you're also a professor at LSU.
I am indeed.
Okay, tell us a little bit what brought you here and what brought you into the company.
Well, I've been coming to the area actually for a long time, since I was a young singer. I started off singing in Pensacola, was my first professional gig, Barber Seville. I think I got paid all of $500 to do that in Italian, but I was ready to do it. And when I was there, I met a conductor who runs JPAS out in Metairie, and I have come down and sung many times there early in my career. I also, even though we're both 20-some years old, know Carol from when I was an apprentice at Chautauqua, and so I've always felt this connection to the area. And I came to LSU, frankly, on a fluke. I lived in New York City. I was singing regionally. And to live in New York City, most singers have to have a day job. I had a day job on Wall Street. After 9/11, I really just didn't want to be in New York anymore. My friend that I went to school with was the baritone on faculty at LSU. Decided to leave sort of at the end of an academic year, and they invited me to come down just for a year. That was 7 years ago. I'm up for tenure this year, that's all. Just say a little prayer. I love it. And I came to New Orleans Opera in the production of Johnny Skiki, and I had a fabulous time with that. Of course, Carol is one of my favorite people on this planet. You're so lucky to have her here.
Excellent. Well, tell us about the three Ping Pang Pong. Okay? Quite honestly, I think Ping Pang and Pong have the hardest music in the show.
I would agree, but don't tell the lead.
I think that, I don't know if she would disagree though. I think it's the hardest music, and it's probably the least rewarding of its difficulty.
I think it's the least appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
In this grand setting, it does not get grander than Turandot in my mind. Calaf and Turandot and Lyall and Timur, to an extent, sort of just get to stand and sing. And Ping Pang and Pong have to keep the liveliness of the action going. I would say even the chorus at points really just stands and sings in many major productions of the show. I just don't know whether that will be part of this, but so Ping Pang and Pong really keep the movement going in the show. There's always a lot of fan work, because we typically carry Oriental fans or Asian fans, and we have a lot of fan work a la Mikado. Thank goodness I have a lot of GNS background. My fan work excels, if I may be so bold. Bring it on. I can do anything you ask me to do. And do it in the dark. It'll be on fire. I know a lot of my friends, baritones in the business, don't necessarily like to sing Ping because it is a very difficult role. It's high and low at the same time, and you don't get really any credit for it at the end of the show. I, on the other hand, love to sing this role. I love the Ping Pang and Pong scene, even though some people wish the Ping Pang and Pong scene wasn't in the show, that they could just hear the tenor and the soprano all night long. I just think it is charming beyond all words. I think Puccini absolutely knew what he was doing and giving everybody a break from all of the doom and gloom that Turandot is, and giving Ping Pang and Pong some levity in the midst of the story.
That's an excellent idea. I think it's very fun. I think everybody's going to really enjoy you and your comrades in this, because the three of you, I think, are going to be fantastic together.
Look out.
Now, I want to move to Marc here, because you were talking about the production about this. And I know there's been some degree of, we've got lots of phone calls in the office about explain what's it mean that it's a gala, what's it mean that it's a main stage, why is it at convention center, all these different questions, and why don't you answer all of those?
Well, thanks. Well, actually, when it started out, when Robert sat down with us and said, we want to open the season, with something spectacular and something grand, and it was Turandot. Originally we were going to just launch into a big concert and create an event around just singing, and that is actually, I think, where the word gala came from. And then, of course, Robert said, we can do more. Let's semi-stage it. Let's add costumes and lighting and props and and give them, tell the full story, rather than just have the soprano and the tenor, standing there in a tux all proud and singing for you. This way we can really, let them shine. So when we said, hey, let's do this big event, we said, where can we do it? That we can do it in one night to give, to maximize an event out of it, rather than having two events on a Friday and a Sunday. So we sat down and we tried to figure out a venue in town that could hold all our audience.
And I think originally we talked about doing Mahalia, but it's just not big enough, is it?
It's not big enough. Mahalia seats about 2,300 people.
Right.
We have 2,000 subscribers. And as much as we all like all of you to be at the show, we would also like to invite the rest of the town. So we said, let's find a different venue. Originally, the original concept was for the entire production to take place at Mardi Gras World, which is where, of course, as you all know, is where our dinner is being held. However, Mardi Gras World can't hold 4,000 people either. Or let me rephrase that. It can't hold them comfortably that everybody will see the stage. Let me say that.
And it can't necessarily hold them in an acoustically pleasant place.
True.
Yes.
If you like a tin roof, it's perfect. But but as we're not doing Turandot the bluegrass opera, we'll forgo that. So in looking around, we said, well, what's what is the biggest and next best place? And it turns out, of course, that it's the convention center. For several reasons. One, we have done 2 concerts there. We did Toast of New Orleans there, right, and the New Year's Eve Gala. I stopped and think. But again, both of those were concerts. So when Robert and the production staff sat down and said, well, let's do it there. We said it's perfect. It seats over roughly about 4,000. I think 3,000 to 4,000 people. It's a big open area for those of you that haven't been there. So we're constructing a stage there. It's roughly 65 feet by 40 feet. We've erected a large platform in the back where a lot of the action will take place. Robert is staging it that the first part of the stage, the downstage part of it closest to the audience, will be where Ping Pang and Pong are a lot of the evening, up close and personal to that front row there. And the Mandarin, of course, will start us there. And then he's created 2 acting areas. The one, obviously, downstage is below below Robert and the orchestra. And the other one will be behind the chorus, up on a platform, elevated so everybody can see them. And that's where the Emperor will be, Turandot will be. And then they will move between the 2 areas and tell the story for us all.
So let's just get it straight. We're doing every note of this opera.
We are doing every note of the opera.
Excellent.
Nothing is
being cut.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asked earlier about why is it shorter? Well, we're doing acts 2 and 3 together.
Correct. Yeah.
So that there's one fewer.
Right. There's one fewer intermission. Yeah. I mean, although Act 1 is traditional, it is a short act. 2 and 3 flow together because it's just the passing of the night. Whereas it's pass of a day between Act 1 and 2. So.
But tell us about the special start time of 6 o'clock. How did that happen?
6 o'clock actually happened because of the need for the want, I guess, to say for the dinner. Mm-hmm. To create to make sure that we were giving everybody an entire evening event. So the opera actually will start at 6. We'll be even with intermission, the opera is down by 8:15. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Puccini wrote a quick one. And then it'll of course flow right into the events at Mardi Gras.
Exactly. So the plan was to be able to make it to where you weren't eating dinner at 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly. This way you'll be snacking on hors d'oeuvres by 8:30.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, well, it sounds like an exciting evening. I'd like to know what questions you have out there.
How can you train a children's chorus in 3 weeks? That's amazing to me.
Again, what helps is I actually am drawing on kids from the Nord Crescent City Lights Youth Theater. So they did 2 different shows over the summer. They're used to being in shows and putting stuff together very quickly. It's helped by the fact that it's, again, each time they sing, it's the same melody. And in some cases, it's the same words set slightly differently. I actually programmed more rehearsals than I needed. And I ended up canceling some because they're smart and they're getting it. And I kind of learned never to underestimate kids. Some of them went into it, like I say, thinking, oh, this is going to be hard, I'm never going to get it, and then they eventually do. There are 13 of them, incidentally. So.
How's the memory for the adults been?
Well, we're not shooting to be memorized for this, except on our staged things. We will have our black notebooks in front of us, so that part of it will still be concert. It's a huge score, and budgetarily that's what also worked for this. But they're ready to give you the full thing. They'll be seated in like risers, like areas, but they're ready to give you the full feel of it, even with a little bit of help in front of them.
How's your memory doing on it, Ken?
Oh. Well, the 3 lines that I sing were memorized months ago.
And Robert is going to make them stand, too. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
Other question in the back.
Besides the local flavor we have here, which I'm impressed, how many people are coming out of town to sing in the opera?
Well, we have the lead Turandot is singing all over the world right now. She is arguably the leading Turandot right now in the world. She's finishing, did she close Kansas City this weekend, I think?
I think it's this weekend, yes.
Yeah, she, and there's incredible, actually, anybody who's on Facebook, if you go to the New Orleans Opera's page, you can read the interview, the review that they just did, and they loved her in Kansas City. Roy, who is the tenor, Roy is from Chicago, so he'll be coming in. Again, Roy, interesting thing about him, if you go and look up him up on YouTube, thank you. He was in a very, very special production. Was it at Reagan's, the bug version, a bug version of Turandot, where it was kind of like staged like A Bug's Life. I mean, there you go. Yes. And just go look it up. And he sings Nessa Norma. It's beautiful. The Katie Van Kooten, who is in the U, is coming in from California. She was through the Covent Garden Young Artist Program. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
I believe so. I believe so. And is just recently, those who saw Peter Grimes in Houston recently with Griffey, she was the Ellen in that production. We have Volpe, who's coming in from New York, and we have Tony Laciura, exactly. So 5 of our principal leads are coming in, and these are people who are people that you would have to go to the Met, San Francisco, or Europe to hear. So we're quite lucky to have artists of this stature and this level, and then those here as well who are being a part of this production.
Will we be singing without amplification?
Oh, yes.
That's a good question, yes.
Yeah, actually, yes. Thank you. Well, I can hold it. Basis, not that. Anyway. Yes, no, there is no sound reinforcement for the singers. There will be some just acoustic enhancement on the orchestra in terms of just because of how big the house is in and of itself, but nothing on the singers.
I want to make two little side comments here. If you want to hear some more information about the principals themselves, if you go to our website, I have interviews that I have posted online with Lise, with Roy, and with Katie about these roles for them specifically, what's going on in their life right now. I think you would find them very informative. That you also will hear how just wonderful personal they are. These are just regular, everyday people who just happen to be, stars in the opera world. The other comment was that for Carol's sake, that Carol told me a story about how much the chorus loved Lise because of the spinning song. And I told Lise that during this interview, and I could hear her blushing over the phone. And she was really so excited. It really moved her to know how much she loves the chorus here and loves the company here, to know that it was reciprocal from them. So that was nice. Some other questions? Diane?
Not a question, but for those of you who
don't get the opera news from New York, in this month's issue, they talked about Chautauqua and had a big paragraph about Carol and the wonderful chorus that was under her. It was extremely complimentary. I think that they called it a real gem or something like that. It was something to that effect. It was really great to see that. So I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
Who are singing the roles of Pang and Pong?
Well, the Pang and Pong, one is Chauncey. We know Chauncey, and then Casey Candebat. What was Casey here last for?
Let's see. What did Casey come for?
I said I thought he knew. I can't recall.
I can't remember actually. He'll be here twice this year. He's a young man who is a native New Orleanian. He just finished in May his master's at Northwestern University and has remained living in Chicago, but he's back for Pong here, and then in Zalame he'll be the first Jew. That production has no chorus, but millions of small roles, and we actually are again blessed that we have Ken will be back for that. A lot of people from the best of the local regional crowd will be represented in that, particularly for men. Almost every year there are a lot of small roles for men, and so Casey will be back to do that. So he's a Loyola grad and still, I think, very much a New Orleanian at heart.
I think the only ensemble more difficult, Ping Ping Pong, are the Flying Jews.
Yes.
Yes, the Flying Jews in Zalame are another example of extremely difficult music that can't sound difficult, and it has to be just really spot on. So, good luck. Some other questions?
I've been fortunate to see probably maybe a dozen Turandot in my lifetime, and fully staged productions. And one of the things that's always difficult for me to understand is what happens to Turandot after the death of Lyall. You know, before the death of Lyall, she's chopping people's heads off right and left, seems to have no remorse whatsoever about this. Hey, is the total man-hater. And yet, after the death of Lyall, she suddenly melts. And it's difficult dramatically to see how this actually happens in a fully staged production. I'm just curious as how you try to make this happen when it's a semi-staged production.
That's a really good point. And actually, I got into that exact discussion with Lise on the interview that's online. One thing that she said, there's two answers to that. One thing that she said is that her melting, that Lise believes, that the melting has to begin the very first time she sees Calaf. The very instant she sees him, she's like, there's something different about him. She knows something's different. And then her demeanor then becomes more defensive to herself, of kind of, just stop it, get over it, move on, you have a job to do. The second part of the answer is what you see today is maybe a third of what was originally written for the Alfano ending. Just a brief little history there is that after Puccini died, he left the opera incomplete. Puccini himself couldn't decide how to end it. He left piles of examples and little snippets of ideas, and they decided to get a composer that they thought they actually considered Mercadante, but they decided Mercadante, that history, people would hear it sounding way too much like Mercadante, and I'm sure everybody here can hum several of his operas right now. So they went to this man named Alfano. Alfano took these excerpts and he wrote the ending based upon the notes of actually Puccini's. Then that was Alfano number one. Alfano 2 was what Toscanini did. Toscanini took and cut Alfano's down. And the reason why, in the full version, you hear Turandot going on and on as she tries to break down what happened. She tries to understand why this girl would die for love and what could this mean. And you hear her melting. You hear her logic where she argues with herself and breaks herself down. In the shorter version, you lose all that. And it just has to go, bam, she gets kissed and she melts. And so But for Lise, she believes that this is a process that has to begin at the very beginning. So by the time that she sees you kill herself, the melting is pretty well done by that point. That's what finally proves to her what love is.
But in her final aria, the primo pianto, she does explain how she felt and what happened to her. So, and they cut that in so many productions, so I'm really glad to hear that we're not cutting anything.
Nothing, as far as I know, is being cut. Is that correct?
Because without that, it really doesn't make much sense at all.
Absolutely.
One other huge advantage is that Roy and Lise have performed these roles together. And so they have rapport already, and they're here for such a short time in our production period. And I think one of the things that Robert feels so good about is that these are two principals who have interacted in these roles before.
And they're both very good friends. And she this summer, after she finished, I think it was a Turandot somewhere, she went down to Bragant's to hear him singing Chenier. They hear each other sing, they're good friends, and it makes a big difference whenever you have singers who can work that way as colleagues. I guarantee you, if they were not that way, you would know it. Definitely.
A quick thing from a kid's point of view, when I'm explaining the plot and I say, you won't miss this spot because this is the big kiss. And a child raised her hand and said, do they really kiss? Oh!
Any other comments or questions?
I have heard knowledgeable people say Turandot, Turandot, and a Frenchy Turandot. What did Mr. Puccini call his opera?
Well, there's argument on that as well. The story on this is that first off, the name Turandot is Persian, and because in the original story she was Turandot means daughter of Turan, and so in that case, in the Persian pronunciation of the name, it is absolutely pronounced. There's absolutely no reason why it would not be pronounced. However, some people who supposedly knew Puccini said he never ever pronounced it, and that he wrote it to where you weren't supposed to say it. Then you have other people who knew Puccini, like his daughter, who said he absolutely pronounced it and you must pronounce it. So the answer is, it doesn't really matter. She melts and they fall in love and it ends. And up until that point, she kills a lot of people, and maybe that's why she's angry. Everybody says her name wrong. But there is a lot of it, and I got an email. We got an email at the office about this exact question, and what I find really interesting is that whenever people will come up to you and say, "I'm going to sing opera Turandot," and they look at you and wait for you to correct them. It's like they're throwing a gauntlet down. It is okay. I know what you're talking about, and I know what opera you're singing, so I'm not worried. But yeah, there is great experts on both sides who say they're 100% correct.
Thank you for clearing it up.
I will say, my explanation in this email also said, I've done this show twice with the Italian conductor Eduardo Mueller, who is Italian. He ran the Young Artist program at La Scala for 20 years. He was coach of people like Renata Tebaldi. He says Turandot. He does say the T. And it would never be Turandot, because that's just bad Italian. And I think that may be part of the point, is that too often people say it with an explosive T at the end, which is just bad. So.
This is considered one of the grand operas, right?
Correct, absolutely. Turandot is easily one of the biggest operas I can think of. Absolutely. And it's a happy ending. I think that was a problem. Puccini didn't know what to do with a happy ending. He was fine getting to the point where she was dead. But what to do then, he just didn't know what to do. Keep him alive. Yeah.
Are there seats left for the dinner?
There are. I think we mentioned that before. The whole plan of this evening was to be able to do the show, like Marc said, as well as to do the performance at 6 o'clock, and then very conveniently, right around the corner from the convention center is Mardi Gras World, where the dinner is going to be. And yes, there are definitely seats available. It's going to be a fantastic evening. Multiple levels, from the low price to high price. I think there's one table left. If anybody wants a table, you can buy that still, and different levels of tables even. So it's really a wonderful, all-encompassing night for dinner, entertainment, everything. Okay, we know everything about Turandot now. Well, I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank our panel for coming. I think that this is a good kickoff for our orientation roundtables. And now we'll stay around, and Betsy will, I guess, just receive us in the other room. Thank you very much.